Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United at the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
So welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast in association with Lucky Star Gin. You will notice I'm out and about. I'm in a swingy chair, so I'm going to keep doing this until Tim hits me. And that's given a little bit away. We're joined by Tim. Hello, Tim.
How are you?
I'm very well. 2 years we've been saying, oh, you should come on, I should come on. And finally it was like, come on, Tim, let's just do it now. Let's get upstairs.
I think it's probably time. I think the problem with being as successful as I am, it's always easy to say, I would do it tomorrow, I'll talk to you next week or what have you. And of course, you know, it never happens that way.
It never happens, yeah. But
so you
grabbed
rang
you
me
in the
this
bar.
afternoon. I was coming down for the women's game and it was like, well, why not?
Exactly. Well, we're at the women's game, which is why the schedule has been sort of blown out, because I'm very excited that we're under the lights. Only about an hour ago, I realised that I'm excited to be under the lights because it's going to be Rosie's first game under the lights. Not excited for me at all.
Okay.
I'm excited for Little Un. So
Yeah. Well, my first game was under lights as well.
yeah,
I think it was a long time ago.
Well,
it was an evening fixture, definitely. So
yeah.
the lights would have come on.
absolutely. So people, well, obviously some people will, some people won't know you. So for the benefit of anyone who doesn't know you, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your something credentials, if you like. I haven't got the sound clip, so you're not going to hear the Who Are You music, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how your Sutton history.
Yeah, so well, first and foremost, I'm a fan, as I just alluded to. I came to my first game one evening back in 1978, Anglo-Italian Cup, and quite relevant to now. That was a free ticket issued to schools, something we're still doing to the day, and it'd be nice to think that the recipient of one of those tickets that we're handing out in 2023 will perhaps be sitting in this room, whatever it is, 30 years later, having adopted more than one hat. So I'm not just a supporter. My first official role was company secretary to the limited company that owns the football club, and then it became secretary, involved in various management positions and what have you, and then joined the board as a director. Relatively recently, actually, up until last week, I think I was the most recent director. So that mantle's been passed on now. And the real answer to the question is why am I here almost every day, or my wife thinks it is every day, is because of the wonderful journey we've gone on since becoming champions of the National League, which is up
on
there,
the board,
just behind us there. And it's probably out of shot, but when we put that up on the board, we deliberately put it in a place where there's no space underneath it, because champions of the National League is obviously something we're only going to be once.
Exactly.
We're not going back
We're
now.
not.
But and that crazy May, which doesn't seem that long ago, sometimes it feels quite a long time ago actually, resulted in the club requiring somebody to be full-time within the club to answer the phone, and whenever the EFL or the FA rung and what have you. And I took that on as another hat, and we've had a few iterations since then of who works here and doesn't. We've grown slightly, but I'm now the chief operating officer, which sounds quite grand, but in effect means I have fingers in lots of pies, and I am the default go-to person when something needs doing or answering or what have you, whilst still being secretary and be involved on the football side and what have you as well. So that's the non-expurgated version of a very short answer you'll probably hope.
No, absolutely not. Because you've hit on a few points that we are going to come back to. So one of the questions I wanted to know is, how different is it, or how you're watching games now, not just as a fan? You've got
Yeah.
a whole other side. How sort of difficult is it to kind of move from just watching as a fan, and like yesterday, you were a fan, whatever way, shape, or form. That last 30 seconds, you're going to be jumping up and down and screaming.
I was
There was
both of those.
There's a photo of you, I believe, in that crazy day in May, I think it was, screaming on the pitch.
Yeah, they've managed the photos from that day. They've been turned into various posters around more the tunnel and the players' areas. But I'm not important enough that they to keep. So I've been cut out of some of those. But yeah, I'm very privileged actually because of what I get to do here and the roles and responsibilities I have. That I do have access to the players and the changing rooms, and I do get to go on the pitch and all the rest of it. But at heart, I'm still the fan. Before we elevated ourselves into the position we currently are. So match days are quite interesting for me now because that's a work day for me.
Mm-hmm.
I am a fan and always will be a fan, but I get to see very few games in their entirety. People will often see me walking around with a mop and a bucket or cleaning a toilet or what have you on match days, which is, it goes with the territory of what I do. It's not the most glamorous side of what I do, but that is what match days can be like for me. And I joked at the Walsall game that I saw all 4 goals, and I think up until that point in the season I hadn't seen a total of 4 goals. So my match days experience, home matches are very varied. They're long and they involve all kinds of things, but I do try it and still watch the game and be with the fans as much as possible. I get to see more football now as an away supporter, and away supporters are great, and I wish we had more of them. And I'm sure lots is being done on that front, whether it's a supporters club or supporters as individuals or the club itself, trying to grow that. But I love watching as an away fan, and yesterday's fairly typical for a match day. I mean, I'm quite lucky in that I often go up the day before. I travel with the team, or I meet the team rather than travel with them. And there's a whole routine around what Friday afternoons and Friday evenings are like for a Saturday fixture, and what have you. Matt likes his routine, and we all thoroughly enjoy those days, generally speaking. Sometimes we joke that when it gets to 3 o'clock on a Saturday, that's when that's when the best bit of the weekend has actually happened. Can we go home now? But joking aside, yesterday was typical match day. I mean, I'll do the changing room thing. I do the team sheets. I speak to the referees. I represent the club in its literal sense in the lead up to the match. And then I'm very privileged and lucky that I get hosted by the away clubs, usually in a boardroom, and I get to do the handshakey bit, the bit that we used to love as a non-league club, when you got to literally stand next to a fan from the opposition and ask how their season was going and what was going on, and the knowledge across the pyramid. They were great, and we kind of miss out on that now. I still have an element of that, luckily, in the boardroom with away directors or sponsors or whoever happens to be in there. And then typically I'll watch the first half of the game in that area, often on the halfway line in a nice elevated position. But as yesterday, come the second half, I'll work my way around, and I'll stand or sit wherever we've been allocated. Whether there's 20 or 30 people as there are sometimes, or 3, 4, 500, I'll be in there being that fan that I don't get the chance to be as much as I used to. And you're right, 94 minutes yesterday. We got to see the real me, the people that are around me, and I'm very conscious of who I am and what I represent and what have you. But the hair gets let down, and we thoroughly enjoy ourselves when we have moments like we did yesterday. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I was going to ask you. You've gone on to the next one quite brilliantly. Ask you about your match day, because I've often joked when I've come here a little bit early, I'll see you in one outfit, going to do one set of things, and then you have a quick change, and you're off doing something else. And then, you do kind of sometimes sneak onto the back of the curve where I saw you, was it last week? How important is that for you to just get that kind of feel of what fans are thinking, saying? I mean, I know in the match we're all saying the referee's awful, but how sort of important is that to try and keep that connection?
I think it's massively important. You're right. People often joke with me that I wear 3 sets of outfits on match days, and we won't go too much into what they represent. But you're right. When I'm with the fans and I get the chance, because the radio's gone quiet, and I'll go and stand with whether the people I've stood with for 20 plus years, or whether the people that I've got to know relatively recently, or whether they're complete strangers. People come up to me, which is great about this club, that we are accessible. So people will come up to me and others and ask their questions and offer their opinions. People are entitled to opinions. That's great. But it's very important that we have that conduit to the fan base. And I think, I don't know absolutely what it's like at other clubs, but it's hard for me to think of another club that has the accessibility to people from the very top all the way down to the bottom tiers of management, if you like, or just supporters. We're all fans at the end of the day, and we do all have that opportunity to talk and express our opinions, and sometimes they're football ones. You were right, La Curva last week. I was questioning. I'm very good to referees. I'm not anti-referee at all. I see them as people, and I accept that they must make mistakes in the same way that I make mistakes. But it is sometimes opportune to get the collective opinion about how that wasn't a penalty, for instance. Not that we can ever change it.
No.
But, yes, we referee conversations do crop up when I talk with my brethren on the terraces.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it must be difficult, because I know ages ago, when one of the County Cup games I was at, AB was kind of wandering around, and he's sort of like, I don't get to do this anymore. I don't get to go onto the ground. So it's really good to kind of, it's almost back to the floor type thing, but on a natural basis.
And I think sometimes we have to sort of remind ourselves that we can do this kind of thing. I think we get a little bit caught up with how hectic match days can be, and we're all doing different roles, whether it's selling tickets in the office or selling programs or just dealing with problems that have come up. But actually, all of us can and perhaps should do more by way of walking around and seeking out the people that we haven't spoken to, or the people we've never spoken to at all, because it's very easy to think we're integrating with our fans and being accessible, which we are. But when you're busy, you tend to find the people like yourself that I already know, and that we can have a conversation with whenever. And sometimes it's nice to hear, and be introduced to new people. And I'm loving the fact that there's people that I haven't seen, people coming up to me and, coming for the second time, which I think is brilliant when you find people that come the second time, because they've obviously enjoyed it the first time. You feel people have come from all over the place. I had a man and his son who were on holiday from Houston and happened to come to one of our games. And next time they were in the country, they wanted to come back. Sure. And that's a hell of a journey to come, and to fit in, things like that. So it's great when you do get to meet not just the regular fans, but just people generally, why they're here and what they get out of it. And then we learn from that as well, because that allows us to put,
exactly. What you think is important, what I think is important to me, may not be important to this person over here. They might really want something else, and you go, actually, I can do that. That we can solve. I can't solve Mike's thing of wanting his stairs on the curve to remain forever and ever and ever and never be knocked down, by the way. But you can't do that. All the other things you might be able to tick off. So that's why it's important.
No, it's when we do what we do, we really want to keep, as much as we can, the core values of what we stand for and have stood for a long time. But the reality is, it wasn't that long ago there were 1,000 people in the ground. Any attendance that started with a 1, you thought we've had a good day here, and now we're getting 3 times that. So almost by definition, we've attracted a lot more people who are new to us, and we have to be respectful of what they want out of the club and what have you as well. So it's that balance of being respectful to both and not disrespectful to either, and things evolve. I'm sure. When I first came through the gates, there had been certain traditions and certain things that had always been done that way and what have you, and they perhaps felt alien to me, or I wasn't aware of them. But that journey just progresses, and the kids we're giving free tickets to now that are coming with their dads or their families or their school chums or whatever it is, they'll be our future. And at some point we'll be passing on the baton, and they'll be looking after and being respectful to me and my generation. But at the same time, if we're in the Championship by then, or wherever we happen to be, they'll be dealing with the current and planning for the future as well. So it is a balance, but we do our best at making that balance.
Of course. One of the things you mentioned is, and I was going to ask about, as the team news, you get it a little sneak peek, because obviously you're giving it to the referees. Any chance of sending that to me so I can get my prediction leagues better?
Well, we'll see how that goes. But
It's a short answer.
The short answer is no. Typically, I get team news quite early, mid Saturday morning, and part of that is my job is making sure that team's a valid team, particularly in cup competitions and what have you. There are various different rules, and you can't. Matt's very good, by the way, but you can't expect him to be responsible for knowing all of the rules and what have you. And he's very good at communicating. He'll often ask me, is this team okay, particularly in things like the EFL Trophy and what have you, and we'll feedback. No, you can't play that person or whatever it happens to be. And then that goes through a process that eventually is the swapping of the team sheets and giving that news to the media ahead of an embargo and what have you. But everybody in the media knows how that works and what have you. So football's, we're all a family. We all know what the rules are, and we do the right thing. And like in many things in life, if you try and bend that or work it to your advantage and what have you, well, funnily enough, you're excluded from the inside, going forward. So that's how it works. And I won't go into specifics, but there was one occasion this year that the Matt's asked to put someone in on the team sheet, and I had to have that conversation with him, and that got resolved. But I think issues like that, from Matt's perspective, he wants to know about as early as possible. So things like Goody not being available yesterday. Now he knew that, but we communicate that earlier in the week. Just to make sure you do know that, don't you? Yes, I do, but thank you for telling me. Those kind of conversations take place, because the last thing Matt wants to do is prepare a team, and then what he's set up and what he's been working in training on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever it happens to be can't take place. Now, occasionally that will happen because someone will get injured in a warm-up or what have you, but you don't want to be creating those situations we don't need to. So, absolutely. We talk regularly on that basis.
And obviously, you've spoken as a fan, and you have a bigger picture. Bruce brilliantly described some of the results towards the start of the season as a sticky patch, which I thought was amazing. But how much impact does each match results have on you and long-term decisions? So do you kind of look at the last match, or do you look at the last 10 matches, or is it nothing to do with that?
It's a really interesting question, and the dynamics around football clubs are quite interesting. And I've described this in the past, that football is the ultimate long-term industry. If you look at the clubs, generally speaking, across we've been going since 1898. You go to all kinds of clubs that have been going for 100 years or more. Even the young clubs, people have been around for quite some time. So it's very long-term. But within that, everybody's looking at the current season or the next match or what have you. So it's almost like you're operating at both ends of the very long and the very short spectrum at the same time. And for us as custodians and planners and the strategic thinkers behind the club, it's quite difficult at times to sort of, what are you working towards? So ground development, we're looking at what does the next 20 years look like? And if we do something, how will that impact, the future and what have you? But by the same token, match days, attendances are literally affected by what's the current form like. We've probably seen that this year. There might be 500 less people coming through the gate than there would be if we were in the playoff places. Now, I can't control the football, but I have to adapt the business, around that. So there can be challenges, within that, because, 500 people missing, those bums on seats are each worth £20 on match day, perhaps. That's £10,000. You multiply that across the season, that's a significant change in a budget. But by the same token, we're thinking beyond that and going, okay, are we going down? Don't think so. So we plan on on the basis that things are going to be what they're going to be. So it doesn't come into a literal everyday sense.
No.
But like any other business, you have to work around what your current demand for your product is and what have you. And that's what it is at the end of the day as a business. We have to think of it in those terms. And the important thing is, if football's not doing so well, what else are we doing? A lot of the last 3 years has been trying to catch the business up to the football, which is great and exciting, but it's planning around how we transition from a once or twice a week business, game on a Saturday, game on a Tuesday, to being open all the time. And what does being open mean if it's not football? And how does that generate significant amounts of money around that? And they're as important dynamics as the football are. They're perhaps less visible and less well understood. But we're in the entertainment business at the end of the day, and that's what entertainment businesses have to do. So
Yeah.
we're no different.
Well, I'm actually going to skip the section I wrote down because you've led on to another question about sort of budget management and every penny counting. And obviously, we all know we know what the situation is in Sutton. We know we haven't got loads and loads of money, but we had a chat a couple of weeks ago that we've now got Sky in the bars, and to me that's just we've got Sky in the bars. So what? Doesn't mean an awful lot to me. But actually, you were explaining that actually if people were to come down and make this their point to watch a game and spend that money behind the bar, it has a big impact, as you say, over the season.
It does, and even if we just focus on match days, people that arrive at 12 o'clock and not 3 o'clock make a difference. People that traditionally arrive at 3 o'clock, we can tempt them to come in at 2 o'clock or 1:30 or 12:30. So by having happy hour in fan zones, by showing the live game both before and after matches, all that extra activity, it does two things. One, it brings in more money. Of course it does. That's great. The commercial reality is that money is going to be useful to us, but it makes the place feel like a club.
Yeah.
You know, and I often say when you describe a football club, everybody gets football.
Yeah.
You know, we all know what the football is. That's what we come to see. There's 22 people running around, kicking a ball on a green rectangle, and we love that, and that's why we come here. But the football kind of explains itself. The club nature is why people like me have been coming for what feels like 50 years. It's not quite, and why people come and then stay, because it's the social nature of what we do and everything that gets provided. And seeing people arrive, be it at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and have fun around the football, but they're also watching a game or talking about games or just generally talking about what's going on in their lives, because people become friends with people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. And you extend that outside of match days and get people coming down here as their regular social meeting point. You go back to the COVID days, not that we want to go back to them, but how much fun was it on a Friday when we could finally open and have bottle bars and fish and chips in the car park and just catch up on what was going on in people's lives? Happy and sad. People need people. You need to interact with people when you're at your lows, and you want to share your highs.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to engender here: is not think about football as 3 o'clock on a Saturday. It's all day Saturday, or it's the lead up to Saturday, or it's what we're doing today, talking about yesterday's game in the bar. All of those kind of things, and extending what football means to us across the week really helps us as people, as a club, and the finances. So, it ticks a number of boxes. It's not just about how many pounds dropped to the bottom line because we've got Sky in, and what's it costing us, and will it cover its cost and what have you. So,
well, we, as we mentioned, we're here at the ladies' game. There are already a few faces that I would see on a Saturday downstairs. So that's obviously really, really good. One other thing I wanted to mention is about how can I word it? You kind of have a little bit of a reputation as the fun sucker with the statements that you have to put out and no pyro, which I don't agree with anyway, because I hate them because they're in the chest. But that kind of thing, as we were talking about, costs us money. And whether we like it or not, whether people like pyro or not, that's a big problem for the person who's doing it as well, isn't it? So I know you don't like putting out those statements, and that's why I worded it as that. But how important is it that people kind of get that message of, look, can we just stop doing this?
I think behaviour generally is something that the football as an industry has to deal with. Now, in its literal sense, we've got rules, and we have to follow rules because we're a responsible club, we're a responsible company. We will always do the literal right thing. But within that, we've also got a culture of what we expect and what having fun is, and where those lines are, and those lines have changed over time. And when I came as a kid, I'm sure there were all kinds of behaviours then that were considered normal, let alone acceptable, that through today's lens wouldn't happen. Now that's not excusing them or what have you. That's just how life has evolved, and we need to be looking at things in today's literal sense about, are certain behaviours acceptable or not, and if they're not, but not everybody sees that they're not, we've got a duty to sort of explain why they're not acceptable and the implications of those and all the rest of it. Not everybody will get that. And not everybody can be vocal about things. Now, I'm quite fortunate in that I can be vocal and I can be representative of the club and saying this is why and what have you. And I like to think I can do that not just for things that we don't want to happen,
Yeah.
but things that I'm trying to encourage to happen and what have you as well. So yes, sometimes I'm the fun sponge, as my daughter will call me, and sometimes I'm just the responsible figurehead
Yeah.
for how things have to be. Now, there are certain things, as I said, we're trying to encourage different behaviours, and it's great when we go. Yesterday there were nearly, I think it was 250 or so behind the goal, all very vocal, all really enjoyed themselves. There was a few choice words, as there always will be, and there were certain opinions about certain decisions and what have you, as there will be, and that makes what that occasion is. And I think sometimes at home games we don't kind of get the same feeling. Now, some of that is to do with the physical architecture of the club. It's always easier to be noisy when you're in an acoustic area where that sound is going to travel rather than all be spread out. And sometimes it's behaviours because you've got different types of people. An away fan is different to a home fan.
Absolutely.
But I would love to have not just more people going to away games, but the kind of away day atmosphere spreading within the club. It always amuses me when we get accused of football in the library, and it's kind of true, and we do have that history. But historically, we're a small club.
Yeah.
We're on a journey, and we've come a long way. But I would love the atmosphere at our games to be as intense, vocal, enjoyable, even as we see when we're away. And it's great. I get the privilege of being at the away ends in our games and interacting with those away fans. And we've got great reputation from away fans. It's a shame that in many respects we don't have that mingling that we did in the non-league days, because the appreciation that the away fans have of our club and what we've done and what we provide, I don't think is there. Our stewards at the away end are fantastic. They often get the feedback and the voting mechanism about how we're judged. I don't think people appreciate that. And I'm very conscious, again, putting my business hat on once again. I recognise the same for us, our fans. Not everybody can go to every game. Not just the time, but the cost involved and what have you. And it's great seeing people, when you talk to them, as we're beginning to do now in our third season, you're seeing people coming back and saying, I can only go to 2 or 3 games, but I always love coming here. And they'll spend their £20 note on us rather than at Tranmere or at Swindon and what have you, because we look after them. From the welcome they get at the gate, to the service they get in the bars, to the fact that our stewards encourage them to sing, join in with their singing. I know that's been controversial in the past on occasion, but we're providing a great day out for people. Now, the more people who come and have a great day out, whether you're home fans or away fans, those pounds will drop to the bottom line. And essentially, we're a business, and we can go into the numbers a bit later if you like. We've lost money every year for what have you. So every pound matters. But the owners and investors in the club don't take anything out. Everything that gets generated gets put back into the club somehow or other. So every additional marginal incremental pound that we get by being nice, by being welcoming, just by being good at what we do, benefits the club. And that's what I'm trying to do.
No, absolutely. I mean, yes, there was 2 arguments with the stewards, and it was their job is to make a safe environment. And if getting everyone on side makes it a safe environment, then all power to them. The problem with it is everyone has their own, like old gits like me have their own little spot. This is where I want to stand, and everyone does that spread around. So all those away fans are dotted around the ground, and they're not all together. Whereas away, you're kind of all funneled together, and that's why it always seems like that. But maybe we need little kids to just kind of all come down here on a Thursday night and practice.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, as we get better stadium infrastructure, as we get more people coming, we can set up singing areas or family areas. Or the downside of that is going to be that at some point, hopefully not too soon, but if we went up today, it would have to happen. You can't come in through one turnstile and have the entirety of the home end.
Yeah,
we know that when we go to away games, you even the home fans at those places, they'll buy a ticket for X stand. They can't walk round to the bar in the Y stand.
Yeah,
that's not how it works. We've tried to resist that as much as possible because we like the fact that everybody can wander around and you can be down as close as you can to that goal in that half and back at this end in the second half, or get to that bar because that's where people congregate. That will change. That's inevitable, unfortunately. But that's that's one of the downsides of being
Yeah.
successful and moving your way up the pyramid.
It's
And we
follow-
just have to sometimes ask ourselves the question, well, what would you prefer?
Yeah.
You know, do you want the success and the rules and the obligations that come with it as part of that success, or would you rather not have the success and want something else? And that's fine. We've all got
Yeah.
opinions on that. We can be honest about it. But yeah, sometimes we have to do things we wouldn't choose to do.
Yeah,
As I
no.
say, if we were promoted last season, we would already have had to put in those kind of segregated areas and what
Wow.
have you. We'll see that next year, and I'll flag it now. We can give people a chance to get used to it. For 2 years, we've had no standing behind the goals, but we've had freestanding at the sides against
Yeah.
the pitches. That was a 3-year
All right.
moratorium, if that's the right phrase.
Yeah.
So from next year, people won't be able to stand up against the perimeter barriers.
Wow.
They have to be on the curver
Yeah.
or the mounds or other
Right.
terraces. They can't stand in front of the grandstand in the paddocks.
Oh.
So yeah, there'll be things like that will come along, and we'll have to manage the message around that. And the stewards will have to be,
Yeah.
accepting that there'll be some education required.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
No,
So
yeah.
those minor inconveniences, which they all are at the end of the day, shouldn't detract from why we're coming here and the support we give to the club
Yeah.
and the players and what have you.
Right. It kind of answers a question then, because there's been a few games where I'm looking around going, got 3,000 here. It could definitely get more, but if we're not allowed to have people standing up, well, I know we're allowed, but if it's only a temporary thing, then if everyone has to move back, then that's where all the space that I'm seeing.
So yeah, it doesn't quite work like that because our capacity has worked on the basis that they're not standing there.
Right.
So we've got official capacities which are worked out on densities of certain areas, and different terraces are made in different ways, so they have different formulae that apply to them. It's all quite boring.
Yeah.
But essentially, we have a capacity calculation that if we can operate in a fully free, safe way, it's going to be X. There'll be certain situations where that X is reduced. It might be reduced officially. It might just be an operational reduction. And at the moment, we allow some of the people that technically should be standing on the terrace to be up against the fence. And that would have to change, as I say, going forward. Now, what that will mean is it will probably be denser than it has done previously. And we'd hope not to be able to move the barriers and the cost involved in that and what have you. But we'll just have to see how that pans out.
Yeah.
Now, I'm loving trying to make standing areas denser because that's us successfully bringing more people into the stadium. Now, there's going to be stadium developments that are going to be taking place over the next few months and what have you. And that's going to increase capacity as well. So whilst we've got these things that are sort of pushing down on our capacity and making it less exciting, or as we want it to be in some people's eyes, we've got lots of other things going on that are, moving that spectrum the other way. The pendulum's going to swing in other ways as well. So if we get that balance right, we won't have issues with people not being able to attend because it's too full or what have you, or stand. There'll be elements of I've always stood here, why can't I now? Because that's how the world works.
Who would say such a terrible
But
thing?
if we're always providing good things, and giving people's reasons to come, people will adapt.
Exactly.
There's lots of change that comes along, and it feels difficult at the time, and people are. I don't think they're worried about change, but change is a thing for people. Yeah. And then you get used to it, and you move on, and you wonder what was all that was about. So yeah.
The managing the message. There's going to be certain things you're not going to be able to answer on this, so I'm not going to force you to. But how do we make decisions on what goes up? We're quite lucky in that us oldies have always been able to rock up and go, hey, what's this about? What's that about? And people are very open and honest. But this last couple of weeks, we flagged up on the website, there's an embargo in Sutton. Everyone's heart has just jumped and people filled the void. Now, piecing together some things, it's a HMRC thing, it was money owed. We've already said we're a club that doesn't have much money. We managed to clear it almost straight away. So from that, I know it can't have been a vast sum because otherwise we wouldn't be able to do it straight away. We've only got that tenner in the bank. But how does the message get decided? Does it get decided of what we communicate to people or how much we're allowed to tell people?
Okay, so I'll caveat the start of this by agreeing that it's probably not been our finest hour, and there's plenty to learn, generally speaking, about comms. But it's not easy, and we didn't disclose the situation because we we didn't think it was right to, and we didn't want to worry people about them coming to a conclusion that there was a really big thing, because we've all seen examples of where this leads to, and it is very easy to go, that's going to be us as well. I can't believe it's happening to us, etc., etc. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't say anything, and I think if there's any kind of legitimacy around this topic, once others had effectively outed that position, could we and should we have done more to explain where we were at and what have you? And the answer with hindsight is probably yes, and we'll learn from that. And I hesitate to say when it happens the next time, because I hope it doesn't, obviously. But we can probably learn from that. I think that's fair to say. But within that, we're quite restricted in what we can say as well. And we had 2 recurrent club not communicating with us type of things. And we might go into the other one in a minute, which is about new directors and new directions and what have you. And again, there are rules around these things. We can only move or communicate once we've got go-aheads from the FA or the EFL or what have you. Now, it could be that other clubs tip people the wink and do things in a certain way. Well, we try and do things the right way. And I think that's quite important, that when we do something, people can rely on that consistency of they're doing it the right way. They're not trying to spin it or play it one way this time and some other way on other occasions. And that does lead to situations, perhaps like we've just had, where we're trying to do the right thing, but we feel quite tired about how that gets said and spoken about and what have you. And there's still things now that we can't really talk about specifically about the embargo, because that whole situation and the causes of it remain unresolved. Yes, we've settled what was due and we're not on the embargo anymore, and but it doesn't mean that that whole episode has finished its entirety. What didn't help us, I guess, was at the same time you've got the situation that you're seeing at Reading, you've got the situation at Sheffield Wednesday, and so you've got numbers of people out there that are looking for pieces of information because they're trying to focus on specific story around specific club, and then they come across
Sutton as well.
Sutton are involved in that as well. And then you get people ringing up and saying, can we have something explaining? And then you politely say, actually, no, we can't. Or in a very general sense, we can answer a question to a trusted source at the BBC or whatever it happens to be. But that also means that it goes onto various websites and people then start that process of putting 2 and 2 together and what have you. But at the same time, as you say, there are people who can just come and ask us the question. Now, we can't always give the literal answer, but we can provide any kind of reassurances around there's something going on, or we can't say X, but don't worry about Y and what have you. But we still have to choose who those people are that we talk to. And people that have been good friends of mine for the last 20 years, I can probably have more brutally honest conversations about than somebody who I've only met via an email or what have you. So it is genuinely difficult. What we would try to do, like any other business, is to have a communications policy, and we have single points of reference so that we get that consistent message, so that you know that everything has got to go through Tony Dolbear, for instance. And in that way, in the long term, that's the right way to do things, because as I explained, people do know that we are being consistent and truthful, rather than, if I ask that person, I'll get a different answer to that. Why is that? And who's telling the truth? And you start getting in that whole world. Now, sometimes that makes it feel like we're not accessible or as accessible as we could be, but there are reasons behind it. And we've just had an episode of that. So hands up, we could probably have been better. There are reasons, and people can talk to me about it.
So on that, you've kind of mentioned, and you need to tell him that it's part of an initiation process to come on the podcast. So that's what we need to make sure. We've got a new director. Apart from that meaning that we're going to be selling Gander Green Lane and building flats, what does it mean? What do we know about him? Is there anything more that we know about him than out there?
So let me rewind the whole process. So since becoming a Football League club, the reality is, from that first day, you have all kinds of people that are pushing forward, either themselves or individuals, and saying, I want to get involved, I want to do this, and conversations start. The vast majority of those are very politely,
Yeah.
thank you very much, but we're happy with what we've got. And a few of them develop into bigger things. I was probably a conversation 10 years ago, or however long it goes. Same with them, Buzz, same with Gary. And this was a process where a more interesting conversation idea was on the table that was worthy of developing, shall we say. So bringing it up to date, yes, we've got a new director on board, and I'm sure he would love the opportunity to come and explain exactly what it is he's looking to do, and how much we're selling the flats for, and what have you. But in its broadest sense, we've got one director, but it's actually 4 individuals, and he's representing that consortium. If that's sounds a very grand title, but there's 4 individuals, all very successful people, and all bringing new skill sets and new abilities to do things that we don't currently have, and that's why it's quite exciting. So for me, yes, they're bringing some money, because any investor, almost inevitably is bringing money, and of course that's very useful. But really, it's what they bring in terms of business acumen and other things to the board table, in a sense, that will allow us to do things that either we haven't done before, or that we find difficult to do because either we don't have the skill set, or we're too wrapped up in what Sutton United is and what Sutton United means. And sometimes you need new external people to come along and say, have you thought about this? Or you can really do things in that space. And I'm quite keen, and I've been quite vocal about when we joined the other 72, we almost felt that intruder syndrome. Do we really belong? They must be brilliant at everything. How can we even compete and what have you? And Matt very soon on the green rectangle saw through. No, we do belong here, and this is just 11 people going toe to toe, and we'll fight it out in a football sense. And some we win, some we lose, but we definitely belong. And it took a little while for us to get to that space more on the club side of the business side. And then, without being disrespectful about other clubs, you realise that they too have plenty of deficiencies and inefficiencies and areas where actually we're better at than them even. And, we definitely do belong. And then it's how do we look at and peer review and pluck the best of what they're good at and where we're less and where we can learn and what. So we start that process ourselves. But we're getting new people on with new ideas and new experience. These guys are experienced at setting up and running and growing companies. We're a massive growth story. We've got people on board here that have done growth stories before. Sutton United has been a gradual growth story, if you like, and a consistent club in the non-league world for a long time. We've not really gone like we've gone in the last couple of years, and we've had a lot of caution, conservatism about not becoming a firework that burns brightly for a short period and then disappears. And I think this episode we're just at the embryonic stages of is going to be a great and exciting way of kind of shackling off that conservatism and seeing where we go next. So some really interesting and exciting conversations taking place. And the 4 guys, I'm sure, would love to get a bit more involved, and they're a bit like me as well. We're not publicity people. We're doers, we're dreamers, we're livers, but we're not self-promoters. So they're quiet Sutton United in that respect, but they're very excited. And we're an attraction proposition. We are one of the few clubs within the most exciting cash generative league in the world in the capital city thereof.
Exactly.
Not many people get the opportunity to choose and be chosen to be part of this story. So it's very exciting stuff. But say I can't go too specific or too into it. But in a very broad sense, we're very excited.
Beautiful. There was one question of practicalities. So we're in the boardroom. Do they literally just sit here with as an iPad? You see them faces on Zoom, or is it on the big screen?
It's very rare we actually have board meetings in the boardroom now.
I had that vision.
It used to be the case, and then COVID,
Changed
did a lot to a lot of the world. And we got used to meeting in a kind of virtual sense. And, this room's used every day, and various combinations of board directors and the other people across the club, use this room. But in terms of board meetings now, it's quite rare to have one in the boardroom. So they will be joining us virtually, but they won't be alone in doing that, in a sense.
Fair enough. Right. I'm going to slot in a quick video that I did with Sutton Volunteer Centre, and it's all about their youth summit, which is happening this Thursday. So by the wonders of technology, you're going to see that now. Okay, so we are doing something a little bit different. I always like to promote local events going on, and we had Sutton Volunteer Centre on a while back, so people should know what goes on there. Today, we're going to focus mostly on the youth summit, but in case anyone missed the previous show, what on earth were you doing? But Jenny, could you give us a little bit of an overview of Sutton Volunteer Centre before we move on to the youth summit?
Yeah, sure, can do. So the Volunteer Centre is a go-to place for volunteering in Sutton. So we help organisations find volunteers, best practice around volunteering. We also run a number of our own projects, from mentoring for young people. We obviously run the project for young people, which is called the Young Commissioners, which is the group of young people that I lead, and they're the voice of young people in Sutton. We also work with Hong Kong community, the Ukrainian community, the Afghan community, helping them to sort of settle into the local area. We have a befriending program where we sort of match volunteers in the community with people that are a little bit lonely and isolated in the community. And there are a number of projects. If you have a look at our website, you can see all the different exciting things we do. And I think we touch the lives of probably thousands of people across the borough really every day. It's quite amazing really how much our project leads impact them positively on the local community.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like to take away when we spoke to Nick a while ago was the fact that it isn't one of those things, once you said you're going to do it, you're stuck forever and ever. There's like a little dip in and out thing. You give as much time as you can. If anyone does remember that session, go back and listen to it if you like, but it's really good stuff. But what I liked especially is you're doing this youth summit, and you thought, I know, we're going to ask the person who's the most youthful person that we can think of to help promote this, Grandpa Mike. But before we talk to Joseph in a moment, can you give me your sell of the youth summit?
Yeah, okay. So we had a youth summit last year, actually, in September last year, where kind of we launched a lot of the work we've been doing with young people over the past year. And at that summit, we agreed some priority areas that were really of concern of young people in Sutton, and those were around mental health, inequalities and safety. And since that time, we've done quite a lot of work with that, with the young people. We've been to various different meetings, done workshops, engagement events with young people. So this summit is a time for us to be able to give back to young people, to actually, come along, find out some useful information about some of those issues, get some help and support around mental health, find out what work we've been doing with the police to keep young people safe in Sutton. There's also going to be careers advice and apprenticeship organisations going to be there. We've got Carshalton College. So it's going to be a place where you can get lots of useful information, but actually have a bit of fun as well. So there's going to be a few fun activities. There'll be free pizza, which is always good, cupcakes, etc. So it should be a really nice, fun event. We're hoping to get lots of young people through the door. The Young Commissioners will be helping to run the event throughout the day, so they will be there facilitating, helping people, registering people. And every young person that comes along will be entered into a prize draw, and we've got laptops, Nando vouchers and various other prizes. So lots of good reasons to come along and meet us, everyone.
Okay, you covered an awful lot there, but you got to get these plugs in. When is it? What
so it's this Thursday. This Thursday starts from 3:00 in the St Nicholas Centre. So it's downstairs in the St Nicholas Centre. If anyone remembers where they were doing the COVID jabs, it's just in the space opposite there. But we'll also be out in the hall, out in the lobby, and it's very more or less opposite Jim Sutton. So nice and easy to find, and there'll be lots of young people around, hopefully guiding people in. And the event will be going on till 6:30. So this Thursday, St Nicholas Centre.
This Thursday, St Nicholas Centre. Beautiful. And Joseph, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
tell us a little bit about yourself, how you kind of got involved, and what people can expect from the Youth Summit.
Yeah, so I am a secondary school student in Sutton. I found Jenny and the young commissioners through one of my friends who's also a young commissioner, and basically the word sort of spread around, and it was a newly sort of fresh group. It had just been launched in 2022, sort of getting renewed with Jenny having joined back then, and then I recently joined, and then my friend also joined. So very quickly the group started growing, and I just found that a lot of the things that we did were really interesting. And again, like what Jenny said, it was just giving back to the community in a way that also really enriched our lives in some sense, because we could work on stuff and know that there was something really gratifying out of it. Whether it be doing an engagement event, whether it be doing a litter pick. And also it was really just a nice thing to do to get your mind off sort of exams or studying, and be able to be with friends and just enjoy, have a nice time outside of school, you know. And I think with the youth summit this year, I think it's a really good reflection point for how much we have got come from last year. Because initially our event last year was just seeing what are young people thinking currently about Sutton, and it was quite broad. So now we have a lot more of a focused aim, and I think given the number of people, hopefully we hope to come to the event, I definitely think it will have a much more focused impact, and we can use that going forward in the next year, hopefully to see even more change
Yeah.
that we hope to do.
Well, I like the idea of doing these tasks to take your mind off school, because my eldest has just been through finished the A levels, and the amount of pressure put on to concentrate on only studies, I'm like, no, just stop. Go do something else, please, just something. So I do like that. Jenny mentioned the issues like mental health, inequalities, and safety. How do those needs kind of tie in? Did they come from you guys, or was that from other sort of outside organisations? Who kind of put these together? How do they resonate with you guys?
Yeah, so we've done loads of sort of engagement events with the police. We've done across our meetings, we had spoke about various issues within Sutton, and predominantly the issues surrounding that we had experienced were focused on those issues. So personal safety, coming to and from school, the issue of vaping within Sutton, and that links in with health and safety, as well as inequalities, because given the fact that we're all secondary school students, we saw really big disparities in how differing schools would perhaps deal with certain issues. So that in its sense was a really big concern for us, which brought up inequalities. And then, of course, mental health is a huge thing facing young people, particularly in their teenage years. So we had many conversations about that. So that's sort of how those three areas kind of built up through those conversations and speaking to council leaders and so on. Yeah.
This one might be for you, Jenny. Better to ask this one. So I noticed there's a survey and some questions about the cost of living as well.
Yes.
What are kind of the expected outcomes or any actions? How will the young people's feedback be used on this?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a really important part of all of the work we do, not just around the cost of living, but around that safety stuff and all those other priorities we're looking at, because a big part of the work is actually making sure we're holding leaders in the community and those organisations to account, those statutory organisations, to say, well, young people have said this, what are you going to do, what's going to change, how they're going to see a positive impact. So obviously the cost of living crisis is massive at the moment, it's impacting everyone. So what we probably haven't heard from young people is actually how that's directly impacting them. So we want to see like in what ways is it impacting them, and actually how can we help them. So there will be information and advice for young people that actually some of it they might be able to take home as well to their families about how to access support, whether that be through some of our voluntary organisations or through something like the family hubs, which is places where the council put together, lots of partners come together and they can support families in many different ways. And as a result of that, hopefully we can look at more tailored ways of directly helping young people with some of those issues.
Beautiful. You've both mentioned young commissioners a few times, and I've nodded very, very politely, pretending, but going to have to explain it a little bit because we're not going to know. So what's involved? What's your main sort of responsibilities, and how do you contribute as a young commissioner? Joseph, you give me your take.
Yeah, so I think if I were to provide a definition, it'd be quite loose, because there's so many different things that we do. In the sort of simplest form, it's holding people in local authority, in local governance, to account for the needs of young people. And I think that really encompasses a broad range of things that we do. That could be from engagement events to the new Met launch, to our own meetings, to the youth summit. There's such a varied things that we do, to litter picks. Those are all sort of things that are forms of us engaging with the community, but also us observing what's in the community to take back to those that can make that change and should really. And also about taking feedback, really. So we do loads of surveys. We've done leafleting in Sutton, really engaging with the community to try and see what concerns are there that young people hold. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just important to add, yeah, so it's like a diverse group of young people from across Sutton, sort of age 11 to 18 years old, you either have to live or go to school in Sutton. We've currently got representation from, I think, 13 or 14 different secondary schools. So a really nice sort of mix of different lived experiences and, you know, people from different areas, different backgrounds. So I think that's really nice. I think that's given us that richness of different opinions and different viewpoints. And actually what's been really lovely is seeing the young people from those different schools coming together when they wouldn't normally always perhaps have any interaction, and seeing that and seeing them make friends as well has been actually absolutely lovely to see. But I think it's definitely sort of opened the eyes of those people that come along to the different experiences of other people in Sutton.
So I'm going to put you on the spot in a second. I'll give you time to think about it. So the question I'm going to ask you is, can you think of a particular project or initiative that has made a difference in Sutton, or not a difference, that's the wrong word, but something you guys are proud of? But
Yeah.
before you give yourself some thinking time, you can mention young people, youth summit and all the rest of it. What kind of ages are we talking about? I mean, I'm guessing almost 50 is out the door. But what kind of age groups are we talking about for the youth summit?
Yeah, it's 11 to 18, but also it will be, you know, it's anyone up to age 25 really, because say, you know, you don't suddenly everything falls into place when you become 18. You know, obviously at 18 you're still very young as well, and you know, might still be at college. So really, that's, you know, for the summit, it's really, you know, all the stuff there that will be of use for people up to the age of about 25.
Okay, and that's giving you a few seconds. Give us that example of something that people in Sutton might go, oh, I didn't know you guys had anything to do with that, or something that you guys are particularly proud of.
Do you want to go, Joseph, or it's what you guys are proud of rather than me? I mean, my suggestion would be something maybe around some of the safety stuff. I think there's been some really positive outcomes there and tangible things in the community.
I think one of the biggest things that I would say as a young commissioner I'm sort of proud to be a part of would be our campaign against the issue of vaping. That I think is one of our biggest sort of projects within the recent few weeks. We've done a range of different things relating to that. So it sort of began with engagement events with young people, having conversations with the young commissioners. And we brought up the issue of vaping, and there were a lot of young people concerned about the number of shops within Sutton, as well as the impact on young people's health that vapes have. And so what we decided to do was write up a letter to Elliot Colburn and Paul Scully, and thankfully we managed to receive a email coming back from Paul Scully about him, you know, speaking to relevant ministers about our concerns, which is really promising. But we also were able to use some of the content of that letter to be able to write up a draft for a sort of policy motion to the British Youth Council manifesto. And that basically meant that we'd be able to make an addition for the increased regulation of vapes within the British Youth Council manifesto. And this was passed, which is fantastic. We were really pleased about this. And it had been something that we'd worked on for a really long time and spent the day debating and trying to defend it, which was really good. And we saw pretty much unanimous support for it, really. So on a national level, we were able to bring some form of change, as well as be able to see one of our local MPs be responsive to our concerns. And I think the fact that it was something that so many young people felt strongly about, and actually when we had the British Youth Council Summit meeting, ACM, there were so many sort of young people that they were like, thank you, you know, this is something that we'd been looking for a really long time. This is something I see my friends do in school, and I'm really worried about it, you know. And having those interactions at the British Youth Council when we passed that policy motion, it was really gratifying. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things I'm proud of.
So when I started that question, I suddenly had a panic moment going, oh God, what if there isn't anything that's made a difference to people in Sutton? But you did go with Sutton, you went national. That's way bigger than I sort of expected. So yeah, brilliant. We're going to go kind of back to the Youth Summit, which is the point that we wanted to promote, a plug. It's a very subtle plug here. I do nice subtleties and smash it with a brick. Don't go to the Youth Summit. So there's all these different areas that we're talking about. I think we've probably covered the one that we're concentrating on mostly with the health. I know there's all the others as well, but health seems to be highlighted. But it also aims to empower young people. How do you feel that your voice and opinions are valued and heard in these sort of things, Joseph? So how do you feel? Do you feel as though people are just sitting there nodding along politely and then going about their day, or do you feel that you're actually being listened to?
I think for me personally, I definitely think it's empowering. I think it's something that's really built up my sort of confidence, being able to speak to people from a range of different backgrounds, take part in a range of different activities. You know, gaining that confidence to go in Sutton High Street and be able to leaflet is something that 2-3 years ago I couldn't have the confidence to do. But it's just, in general, it's life experience, and it builds skills that you will need in adulthood. And I think that that's something really brilliant. But I think more widely, the Young Commissioners is a space, is a group that allows for like a range of participation. You know, if you're really occupied with school, you can be able to take a step back and just have a couple of weeks to rest and relax. And if you really want to participate and do loads of events, and that's also for you. So I just love that there's that range, and it really caters to as many people as possible and aims to be a really accessible group in that sense.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm guessing it's, again, I hated the way they drove it at school all the time, but for these things there's also networking as well, because there'll be different organizations there that you might sort of say, oh, I didn't even know they existed around here. So I guess that's a good thing. Jenny, you're nodding, so
I think what's happened as well is actually we've become very well known, so we get lots of requests from different organisations that want to come along and talk to us and ask us, because they want to hear the viewpoints of young people around the services they might be delivering or other things that they might be trying to do. So recently we were looking at whether we should allow sort of advertising in the high street for junk food, because that's something that you know the local authority can control. So they wanted to sort of hear from young people about what they thought about that. So I think that's been that really positive impact, hasn't it, of you know, sort of getting our name known around the local area.
So just going to dial it back a little bit, because someone who's thinking, do you know what, I might wander along, get a slice of free pizza, and then suddenly hear him talking about national conferences, they might go, whoa, hang on a second. I mean, what do the guys who are going to come along to this realistically, what are they going to be achieving? So when they come to the youth summit, to hear what you guys are going to say, what is their expected next steps in regards to your young commissioners and so on?
Well, the actual young commissioner group is very popular at the moment, so we actually have a waiting list of young people. Yeah, it's been great, obviously, and I'd love to take on more young people. But at the moment, we do have a waiting list. But I suppose it depends on what they're coming for, you know. So there's going to be some information there about like volunteering, apprenticeships, etc. So it might be they want to come along and find out, thinking about, I'm not sure what I want to do in the future, and get some ideas around that. Or actually, there might be young people that come along that actually want to sort of, actually, I'd like to hear about what services there are for young people who are struggling, you know, at the moment. You know, if I've got some exam stress at the moment, you know, what is it, what's out there for me? So I think lots of different things depending on what your interest is, or, you know, the reason that you might want to come along to the summit. So there'll be lots of people there to give advice, and then you might be able to follow up with some of those organisations. There'll be other youth organisations there as well, such as Time Out Youth, which do a lot of work with young people in Sutton. So there'll be lots of opportunities to sort of do different things, you know, depending on what you're interested in.
Okay, beautiful. Well, I said to you guys about 10 minutes. We've been 23 so far. But I'm sorry. But Joseph, I'm going to get you to sign off with your bit and let me know, what would you say to encourage people, if this is the clip they could hear to say, right, this is going to make me go and attend that youth summit. What's your little clip to make people come and not want to miss it? You can't mention the pizza and free cake. You've got to have something else.
Okay. That's a very good question. So I would say, thinking about the youth summit as a whole, just consider the impact that it can have for so many young people in Sutton. Attend the youth summit. Even if you want to have a bit of fun and go on some inflatable limbo, then do that. But you know, you can do so much impact being able to attend it. You know, what we collect from that event will be so meaningful, and having your input by being there, and having your friends' input by being there, will be incredibly valuable for the group going forward, and incredibly valuable for young people within Sutton to see that impact that we hope to make change, you know. Excellent.
You guys need to really work on the promo. There was no inflatable limbo mentioned anywhere else. So you can have all this stuff. Jenny, to wrap up, give us your thoughts why it's important for young people to attend the Youth Summit, and what unique opportunities are they going to be able to offer?
Yes, it's your opportunity to get your voice heard as well. Yeah, because there will probably be local decision makers and other sort of people that will be coming along. So it's your chance to get your voice heard, and actually to actually think about what you can get, you know, find out what is happening in Sutton. Because actually there is some really good stuff happening for young people in Sutton. So come along, find out what's happening, have a little bit of fun at the same time, meet the young commissioners, and you can quiz them about what they've been doing in the local area and how they are actually directly helping you. So yeah, please come along. It will be really fun, and we're hoping to be really busy, buzzing sort of event. And yes, we have got an inflatable limbo, as well as a photo booth and a social media frame, so we can do some social media when you're there. So yeah, bit of fun and a bit of serious stuff at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important line to keep, because if it's all serious, no one's going to turn up.
No.
But beautiful. I think I'm actually in the office on Wednesday, so not Wednesday, Thursday. That would be pointless. On Thursday, so I may pop in after work if
yeah, please do. Yeah,
I'll get my fake ID and pretend. Beautiful. Thank you both for your time. I'll let you get on with the rest of your Saturday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the reason I've done that is because I wanted to finish up with you, because we've got kick-off rapidly approaching. But I wanted to finish off with a thing that was just launched this last week, and I was one of the testers, and it was the Junior Jennies, is it? So yeah, tell us a little quick thing about that, because it's all about the new generation and some of the stuff that you've alluded to before.
Yeah, so this is doing something that's new to us, but again, it's one of these things that we see lots of football clubs do, membership schemes, and we've kind of had them we've had the vice presidents in the past, and that became the 1898 club, which is a limited membership. But what we wanted to do was do something that was broader than that, so it has appeal, but also it's about providing something that we haven't done specifically in the past and finding those new people that are going to be joining the club. So we've launched in the past, well, a month or so ago, we launched the Overseas Supporters Club, which has gone really well. We've now, it's amazing how many different countries we've got people that actually follow us. It's great. We're giving them a sort of a sense of a membership of something. They get more about what we're doing. They get newsletters. They get involvement. They get access to iFollow, as everybody does, and it makes them feel that they are supporting their club. And the junior membership is an extension of that. So they'll get, as part of their membership, they'll get a scarf and they'll get various tangible things, but they also get that joining up and belonging to other things. Jenny's great, obviously. We've got a history of what Jenny means to the club, and the youngsters love all that. We're going to be extending that junior membership into the teen groups as well. That'll be coming quite soon. So it's a broadly similar package of things, but just more directed at a slightly different group. And this will evolve over time. We'll look to grow this and do specific things and make it exciting for people to join those memberships. But what's important is joining a club isn't just about the football.
No.
And so it is about all the things we can do as a community, and aspects of that you've touched on, in terms of what does the community mean to Sutton United and Sutton in general. It's not just about elite sport, it's about all across the age groups, all across the abilities, walking football, disability football, and what have you. So by putting these memberships out there and allowing people to be part of the club rather than just the football, I think it's a really exciting development. And then you've got all those interfaces that can come with that, because a lot of them will be members of a cult section or a girls team or whatever it might be, or they'll have nieces and nephews, and it's just a way of people that come to see the football at 3:00 understanding actually this goes on throughout the week. And one of the things that I won't say it's been disappointing, but we've had to live with, is the real community aspect of the club. When we had the 3G and it was open every day of the week, and people were in the bars all the time, and people could bring their kids because they were doing something, but the first team were doing something in the morning or what have you, and you have that overlap, and that's been lacking because of the reality of turning plastic into grass, and the first team now being near Heathrow and not here. What can we do to try and bridge those gaps and make it feel much more of a club and a community? And this is part of that story. Beautiful.
Well, thank you very much. That was a long 10 minutes, I promised you. Sorry.
That's what happens when you wait 2 years.
Exactly, got a lot to get out. So I hope you enjoyed that. I know it's not the normal match day experience, but we obviously enjoyed the match, the last minute equaliser. This is Sutton Podcast in association with Lucky Star Gin, and thank you for your attention. That's just especially for Joe, because I know he loves that. Take care, see you soon, bye-bye. United! United! United!